The hospital hallway smelled like antiseptic and sadness. Cold tiles reflected the flickering, fluorescent lights above, casting ghost-like shadows. In room 27, a little girl lay still, pale, fragile, and heartbreakingly small in a bed that seemed far too big for her tiny frame. Her name was Emily Carter. She was only 7 years old. She had stage 4 leukemia, and the doctors had said she wouldn't make it past Christmas. It was November, but Emily had someone by her side. Someone who refused to believe in the finality of death. Someone who saw something in her that no one else could anymore, eh? A German shepherd named Max. He wasn't just a dog. He was her guardian, her protector, and maybe her miracle. Just 6 months earlier, Emily had been a bundle of sunshine, bright-eyed, giggly, always running around in her backyard with Max by her side. Her parents, Sarah and Daniel Carter, adopted Max from a shelter 2 years ago after a house fire claimed their previous pet. Max had been a traumatized ex-police dog, retired too young after his handler died in the line of duty. Emily was the only one Max trusted, and in turn, Max was her shadow. But then came the bruises, small ones at first, then nosebleeds. Fevers, doctors ran tests. And when the results came in, Sarah remembered the way the pediatric oncologist avoided her gaze. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Carter. It's acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and it's advanced." Everything after that was a blur. Chemotherapy, bone marrow biopsies, isolation rooms, McSoe's waiting outside, lying by the door, refusing to eat until he could see her. Emily didn't cry when she lost her hair. She didn't cry when she vomited after every treatment. But she did cry the one day they told her Max wouldn't be allowed in her room anymore. "He's a dog," the nurse had said. "The infection risk is too high." That night, Emily's fever spiked to 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Her body shook with chills. The doctors ran every test, but the source of her sudden decline was unclear. Then Max snuck in. No one knew how.
Now 1 minute.
He was outside. The next, he was by Emily's bed, his muzzle resting gently on her hand. And almost instantly, her heart rate slowed. Her breathing calmed. Her fever began to drop. The hospital called it coincidence. Her mother called it divine. The next day, the head nurse made an exception. Max was allowed in for 20 minutes a day. Under supervision, masked and clean. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Emily lit up whenever she saw him. She laughed when he brought her stuffed toys. She whispered to him things she wouldn't even tell her mom. He became her therapy, her comfort, her reason. But Emily wasn't getting better. Every week, her blood count dropped lower. Every night. The beeping machines got louder. By mid-November, the doctors pulled her parents aside. "We've done everything we can," one of them said gently. "It's time to make her comfortable." Sarah screamed in the hallway. Daniel punched a wall until his knuckles bled. But Emily smiled, because Max was there. She patted his head, her voice no louder than a whisper. "It's okay, Max. I'll still be with you. Just in the stars." Max didn't move. He stared at her for what felt like hours. Then he licked her hand. And something changed. That night, Max didn't sleep. He paced. He whined. He sniffed her, the fourth line, her chest, her breathing tube. He barked, not in panic but in urgency. And then something stranger happened. He walked to the door, sat, looked back at her, then barked again. Max's bark woke Nurse Jenna from the night shift nap she wasn't supposed to be taking. She entered the room and found Max barking at Emily's chest. At first, she scolded him. Then she noticed Emily's monitors, her oxygen. Saturation was dropping rapidly by the time the emergency team came in. She had gone into respiratory distress, had Max not barked. She might not have made it through the night. They called it animal intuition. But the next night, Max did it again, and again, and again, every time. Right before her vitals dropped, it was like he could sense it before any machine could. One morning, Emily awoke with tears in her eyes. "I saw Grandpa," she whispered to her mom. He said I'd be okay. He said someone special would help me get better. Sarah nodded, holding back tears. Later that day, Max barked frantically during rounds. This time, not at Emily, but at a passing doctor. A young resident named Dr. Ravi Iqbal. Max wouldn't stop following him. Finally, Dr. Iqbal knelt down, scratching behind Max's ears. "What's up, buddy?" he chuckled. Max nudged his coat pocket. Inside it was a folded research journal article. New experimental treatment car. T-cell therapy. Recently approved for pediatric leukemia, but it was rare, expensive, not covered by most insurance. "There's no way we qualify," Sarah said when they were told. And then something unbelievable happened. Max's story, his bond with Emily, his medical alerts had caught the attention of a local news reporter who'd visited the hospital. The article went viral. Hero dog saves. Little girl with leukemia again and again. TV interviews followed. Millions watched Emily's sweet voice talking about her Max. Donations poured in. By the end of the week, it had enough to fund the entire treatment, and the hospital fast-tracked approval. Dr. Iqbal, inspired by Max's persistence, personally took on Emily's case. But there was still one problem. Her body was too weak. Any slight infection, stress, or drop in blood pressure could kill her during infusion. The team debated whether to proceed. Then Emily looked up, her hand resting on Max's head, and said, "I trust Max, and Max trusts you." The therapy began under tight isolation. Emily's small body shook violently the first night. Fever spiked. Her heart raced. Machines screamed. Nurses panicked. Max was not allowed inside, but he sat by the glass window, staring in, when her vitals dropped. He pawed the window. Then he howled. The sound pierced the silence of the ward. Doctors turned, nurses paused, and Emily stirred against every protocol. Nurse Jenna broke the rules. She opened the door. Max ran in and jumped onto the bed gently, something he had never done before. He laid down, pressed his body against hers, and didn't move. The machine steadied. Her vitals calmed. The howling stopped, and in that moment, every doctor in that room knew this was no ordinary dog. The night Max lay beside her during the infusion became known across the hospital as the Miracle Hour. Doctors stopped questioning protocol. Nurses stopped enforcing the rules. From that moment on, Max was granted full access to Emily's room day or night. And slowly, miraculously, Emily began to improve. Day by day, the bruises faded. Her fever stayed down. Her counts began to rise first, slowly, then steadily. Max stayed with her the whole time, only leaving her side when nurses needed to change dressings or do scans. Even then, he waited outside the door, unmoving, until he was let back in. Everyone in the hospital began to notice something else. Other children started, smiling more when Max passed by. Some asked to pet him. One little boy, too scared to eat because of treatment pain, only started eating again after Max came and sat beside his bed. Watching him patiently, Emily's parents knew Max wasn't just saving their daughter, he was healing the whole ward. But even as Emily improved, they knew her. The fight wasn't over. Recovery would be long. Relapse could come at any time, and her body small, scarred, and tired still had so much more to endure. Then one day, during her 4th week of therapy, Emily whispered to her mother, "Max is sad." Sarah looked down at the dog, confused. He seemed perfectly calm. "Why, baby?" she asked. Emily looked toward the window, he says. "There's another child who needs him. Someone really sick. Someone like me." Sarah gently stroked her daughter's hand. "Do you mean wants to help someone else?" Emily nodded. "But I told him I'm not done with him yet." That night, something happened. Max didn't sleep beside Emily. Instead, he stood by the hospital door and whined. Nurse Jenna, now fully a believer in Max's instincts, followed him. Max led her down 2 floors, past the pediatric unit, past recovery, to the neonatal ICU. There, in the corner, a young mother wept silently over her newborn's incubator. The baby was pale, struggling to breathe. Nurse Jenna asked the staff. The baby had been born with a rare genetic disorder affecting her lungs. Doctors weren't sure she'd survive the week. Max sat near the glass, then lay down. For the first time since entering the hospital, he cried, a soft, low whine that no one had ever heard from him before. The NICU nurses stared, speechless. The next morning, the baby's vitals were better. It made no medical sense. But the story traveled fast. By now, Max wasn't just a companion. He was hope. And then the test results came back. Emily was in complete remission. Tears flooded the room. Sarah collapsed into her husband's arms. Dr. Iqbal whispered a quiet prayer. Even Jenna cried behind her clipboard. But Emily just smiled. Told you Max believed in me. Oh. She was allowed to return home a week later with scheduled visits. Of course, the day she left, the entire pediatric staff lined the hallway to clap for her. Emily walked slowly, weak, but proud, with Max leading the way like a royal procession. They called her the girl who beat death, but she knew. It wasn't her, it was Max. Weeks passed. Emily regained her strength, little by little. She walked short distances again, laughed again. She even went to her favorite park with Max, though now he seemed calmer, older, as if the fight had aged him too. One morning in December, snow fell gently outside their home. Emily was by the fireplace reading with Max curled by her feet. Suddenly, walked to the front door, sat wind once. Emily looked at him. You need to go, don't you? Max looked back at her, then walked to her, nudged her gently. Emily hugged his neck tightly. It's okay. Go help someone else. I'll be okay now. Max licked her cheek, then turned. That evening, he was gone. No broken window, no open door, no sign of struggle. Just gone. Her parents searched the neighborhood, the woods, shelters, but he was never found. Weeks turned to months. Eventually, Emily stopped asking where he'd gone because she knew Max had a mission, a purpose far bigger than anyone understood. He was never just a pet. He was something more, something greater than one spring afternoon. A letter arrived in the mail, no return address. Inside a photo, it showed an elderly man in a hospital gown, hugging a German shepherd with familiar eyes. The handwriting below read, "He came to me in the night. When I was ready to give up, he didn't let me." Emily held the photo to her heart. Good boy, she whispered. Years passed. Emily grew, stronger, taller. Her hair returned. Her laughter grew louder. She visited hospitals, often bringing toys, smiles, and hope to children going through what she once did. She always told them about Max, the dog who didn't just save her life, but gave it back to her one rainy night. At a cancer charity gala, Emily, now 17, was giving a speech on the power of healing. When she finished, the crowd stood in applause, and as she looked into the crowd, her breath caught at the back of the hall. A German shepherd stood, old, gray around the muzzle, scar across one eye. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world stopped. No one else seemed to notice him. He blinked once and was gone. Tears rolled down her face. But this time, they weren't tears of sorrow. They were thanks. Because even if no one else believed it, she knew Max had come home to see her one last time, and somewhere, under the stars he'd promised to watch her from, he was still guarding her, still protecting her, still loving her, because